A TomTom satellite navigation unit drizzled in honey. A Helinox chair with crisp, fresh iceberg lettuce. High-end LED fog lights dipped in creamy milk chocolate. Climb jackets sprinkled with free-range goat's cheese. And Schuberth helmets with a naturally sourced cherry on top. This isn't just any adventure bike shop. This is the adventure bike shop. The Adventure Bike Shop.
Rubbish adverts.
Great at adventure.
Hey guys, welcome to this month's Adventure Bike TV. Graham has graciously allowed me to present this month's show. Where is Graham? Well, he's doing the bike review. Where's that? At the London Bike Show. So let's go over and see what he's up to.
All mounting brackets are polyurethane lined to minimize noise and vibrations. Metal Mule. Engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
At the London Motorbike Show at Excel, where we're looking at all the new adventure bikes coming out in 2019. Now, whilst I love the bike show at the NEC, the one thing I really love about the Excel is that you can see all the manufacturers in such a lovely small space. In fact, you can just walk around and see them all in 5 minutes. It's Triumph, Ducati, Suzuki, Yamaha, Kawasaki, BMW, and there's KTM. And finally CCM, although they don't do adventure bikes anymore. So I've just had a really kind of quick look round, and I have a couple of observations about all the bikes we're seeing here. There's only really, truly two brand new bikes, and that's the KTM 790 and the Yamaha Tenere 700. Everything else is either adding some more capacity to the bike, or maybe it's a bit of a development of an existing model. And I fully appreciate that the bike manufacturers have to put a lot of time and a lot of money into developing new models, but come on guys, two brand new models in 2019? Surely we can do a bit better than that. So, Ducati Multistrada Enduro 1260. It's an increase in capacity, but I have to say, whatever it is they've done with the styling here, I actually rather like it, and I do love this colour scheme. Ducati Scrambler started off as an 800. Last year you got the 1100. But in fairness, we haven't tested the big bike yet, so that's on our to-do list. Now Triumph is quite interesting because the Tiger and the Explorer are essentially updates on last year's model, where the Scrambler 1200 XC, Triumph say, is a genuine first as a bike that is built 50-50 to go off-road and on-road. Now that's new for a Scrambler, but we'll reserve judgment until later in the year when we test it. Now, I mentioned a moment ago about the KTM 790 Aventura, and here's a really good example of where a manufacturer has started from the ground up with a clean sheet of paper, which is why you get that slightly unusual tank much lower down. Now, we're hoping to get one of the first test rides in these bikes, and I am very excited. Suzuki have not increased the capacity of either the 250, the 650 or the 1000cc V-Strom. More of just a facelift really. We've got a 1000cc V-Strom coming on a long-term test, and it'd be really interesting to see how it stacks up against its more expensive brothers. Now, I've got a bit of a soft spot for the 1200 Tenere. After all, it was the bike that I was using when I rode down to the Gambia, which was 7 or 8 years ago, and it was a bit agricultural then, and it hasn't really changed that much other than cosmetically. And the bike that everyone is excited about is the T700, which unfortunately isn't here. Apparently we got our dose of it when we were at the NEC. But I have got to say about that bike, that the bike we saw at the NEC, which is the launch version, just looks so different to the prototype, which looked amazing. But it's a bit of a shame. And it's not like Yamaha can't do innovation. Versys 1000 has had a serious facelift. But in all honesty, I think I prefer the old look because it looked just like Toothless the Dragon. Honda have introduced a sports model into the Africa Twin lineup for 2019, which apparently has some long distance improvements and off-road capability improvements, but there's no mechanical differences, just 2 new colour schemes. Now Honda have got another bike here which has become famous for round the world travel. It's the C90, and even that hasn't been able to escape the facelift frenzy. The GS 1200 became a 1250 last year, and we test rode it and I absolutely loved it. This, and what you'll be able to get this year, is the GS Adventure 1250. Now for that, you get a longer range fuel tank, you get all the scaffolding protection, and the whole bike's just a little bit higher. Yeah. We also test rode the 850 GS last year, which I also liked. This is the new Adventure version, and the thing that strikes you most about this is the looks. From some angles, it's hard to tell it apart from the 1250. I know the AJP PR7 was a bike that came out last year, but when I test rode it, I loved it so much I just couldn't stop myself stopping here and having a little look at it. And it is another good example of a bike manufacturer that has started from the ground up and built a brand new bike. Now, if your licence or your budget is restricting you to a 125, then maybe look no further than the Herald Mirage. It's a great little 125 adventure bike. And it isn't just Herald that are getting into the 125 scrambler and adventure bike market. You've got Lex Moto with this scrambler bike for under £2,000. Now, it would be impossible to come to the show and not talk a little bit about electric bikes, and I'm sitting on the Zero DSR. And it's interesting, this bike has now got a range of 140 miles, and on the quick charger, it'll be charged up in 2 hours. That does open up a lot of options in terms of touring or adventuring for £17,000. So we've taken a whistle-stop tour around the 2019 adventure bikes, big and small and electric. And maybe at the start of this I was a little bit harsh on the manufacturers, bemoaning about their lack of new bikes for 2019. I do appreciate that it takes a huge amount of money and time to come up with brand new bikes, but I can't help just a little bit of a gut feeling of disappointment. One final word on electric bikes. All the electric bikes we've seen today that are capable of keeping anywhere close to the fuel range of the adventure bikes were between 17 and 30 grand. Those prices are going to come down a long way before they start appealing to the mass market of adventure bikers.
Our lids open away from the bike so they can be opened fully without interference, and they create a useful working area. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
Thanks for that, Graham. And as a host of the show, if it's all right, I'd like to give you a bit of constructive criticism. Maybe, do it better. But on to the competition anyway.
Hello and welcome to this month's competition. Now, because Sam is hosting, he is off learning his lines, and it has fallen to me to tell you about what prizes you can win. But before we get on to prizes, let's talk about this month's competition as a whole. There are some changes. We now have a new thing we're trying this month. Everyone who enters a competition will get a free entry if they share any of our competition social media posts. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you share any of those, you will get a free extra entry into the competition, giving you more chance to win this month's prizes and more chance to win the KTM 790 Adventure R. So on to the prizes. In first place this month you will be getting an Alpinestars Guayana Goretex jacket with a retail price of £600 from M&P's in Swansea. We will also throw in an Adventure Bike TV cap and Adventure Bike TV t-shirt. This month's second place prize is 2 items from Enduristan, the Enduristan tool roll and the Enduristan front fender bag, which comes to a retail price of £60, plus an Adventure Bike TV cap. And this month's third place is a Petzl-Tika head torch, worth £27 from Expedition 52, plus an Adventure Bike TV cap. Plus, everyone that enters the competition will get a confirmation email, which will include a 10% discount for M&P's Direct, a 10% discount for the Adventure Bike Shop, and a 10% discount for Exotog. So make sure you enter, make sure you share so you get that free extra entry, and we'll see you for another competition next month.
Another great competition this month. Don't forget, if you share, you will get extra entries into our competition. So, let's get on to the next episode from Tales from the Trails. Morning. We have woken up in this quaint little town in
Belgium.
You'll start your day by visiting the highest point in Belgium, and then onto the Spa racetrack, then into your night stay, which, please remember, was picked to ensure you experience an adventure in Belgium and not for your comfort.
But there is no electricity, no water, no bathroom, no toilets.
Morning, and welcome to Le Shack in Belgium.
Yes.
As you can see, it's quite a good description, I think.
It's a shack in Belgium. It's not.
no
not
way to
rocket
describe
science
it.
to come up with that. Well done, Sam. Okay, right. We've just had our text come through telling us what we have to do today. So Graham, you can read it out.
Okay. Morning, I hope you had a good night, as did we back at Adventure Bike TV HQ! Exclamation mark. Ah! Good for you. Your shack only cost €17, so we spent the rest of your night's budget on Domino's pizza.
Nice.
That's great. What did we eat last night?
Steak sandwiches, to be fair.
Yeah.
Steak sandwiches.
Oh, okay, so
I'm alright with that.
we didn't go hungry or anything.
No.
Today it's more of the Tet. Find yourself somewhere to get breakfast and have a poo. And then a bit of road to get you to the Tet as quick as possible. How do they know we all... Oh, because there's a toilet here, isn't it?
Exactly.
So they know
we're all sitting here desperate for a poo.
Today is all about the riding, but if you find somewhere cool to stop, go for it. Tonight you get a toilet and shower. Woohoo!
But no bed. But first, we need to settle this argument between Sam and Graham as to who is the best Adventure Bike TV presenter, and there's only one way to do that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a scooter race.
Alright, check this out. Well, this is the SOSP 5. It's one of the world's leading brands in scooter stuff.
Go! And Sam has got the lead, he's coming at the front end of the quick. Sam goes the lead! Oh! Excellent, excellent!
I'd just like to thank my mum, Jesus.
It was a team effort, but it was nothing to do with me. The equipment didn't work properly. After my crushing defeat, I was glad to be on the road again, and it wasn't long before something caught our eye. We've just been following some very, very bumpy and very slippery cobblestones, which Tom really, really doesn't like. But it's the first time today that I've been really glad I've been on the 701, because it just didn't phase that at all. I think the heavier bikes are struggling a bit more than this.
Yeah.
In our instructions this morning it said, if you see anything unusual, make sure you stop. Always expect the unexpected, and what we find, the memorial to the Battle of Waterloo. I'm going to be a bit historical, so I now know loads of stuff about the Battle of Waterloo. It was in my head. Yes, 1815, the Battle of Waterloo between Napoleon Bonaparte and the Duke of Wellington. Part of, it was actually the end of the Napoleonic Wars, and most people think it was between Wellington and Bonaparte, but it wasn't. It was between Bonaparte and a coalition of British forces and Prussian forces. And as I said, it marked the end of the Napoleonic Wars. It took place in what is now Belgium, but actually in 1815 it was the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. How impressed are you? Back on the Tet, our hearts were now fully reinflated with off-road eagerness. Thankfully, the hated sand was gone, replaced with dusty trails. I had swapped for the Husky today, and I was loving it. The 701 was chewing this kind of trail up and spitting it out. Well, that's how it made me feel, but I am sure that if it could speak, it would have said how bored it was, because its rider was rubbish. Luckily, it cannot speak, and I was loving it. This is the perfect kind of bike for Tet riding. Light, quick, easy to manage, and best of all, it flattered my riding.
I was having great fun too. The 1290 might be a bit heavier, but on this easy terrain, it was a blast. KTM do what KTM do best, which is making heavy bikes feel like a rally bike.
The beat.
I normally cook with only the best ingredients, and I don't have any of them. I got some good beef. Yeah, I got the beef, yo. Check out the beef. That's not even the beer we wanted. It's funky though. Look, but it's beer with rum.
How'd you sleep last night, Tom?
Not well. Not well.
And why was that?
Because I was on a sofa. Because you had a double bed and you had a double bed, and I had a sofa that was too short for me, and I had to kind of have my legs up on the arm of the chair, and my knee hurts, and I'm tired.
I'd hate to say that I had a really bad night's sleep, but I didn't. It was fantastic.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You could have shared either of us and you had a really good night's sleep.
Yeah. Bit of a cuddle.
Well, really, it's kind of like the world's smallest violin going. Basically, it's self-inflicted. Because you chose to sleep on the sofa, or you could have shared with either of us. We should be called the Sympathy Brothers, shouldn't we?
There is another name for us, I think, but I can't think of it right now. But
No, I can think of many things to call you.
let's now go to Under the Visor with the amazing Jacqui Furneaux.
Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Moto Freight. proud sponsors of Under the Visor.
I'm Jacqui Furneaux, and I rode a Royal Enfield motorcycle from India to Bristol over 7 years and 20 countries. I was backpacking, and I'd already been backpacking for about 8 months, and I was in India deciding on which camel safari I should go on in a place called Jaisalmer, which is in the desert in between India and Pakistan. And I went into a restaurant, and as I entered the restaurant, so did a man on an Enfield motorcycle. And I stopped and had a look at it, because I'd never seen anything like it before. I only later learned that it was an Enfield. And we started chatting, and he, to cut a long story short, we went to the desert for 4 days and had a whale of a time. I forgot all about the camels. And at the end of the 4 days, he went his way, I went my way, and I thought I'd never see him again. And he turned up on my mother's doorstep where I was staying when I got back to the UK after a year backpacking. And he said, why don't you buy an Enfield in India and we'll travel together? And I thought, do you know, I like the sound of that. And so I did. I really enjoyed at first having the aimlessness of the riding. I'd always been led by the clock. I'd been a wife, a nurse, a mother, and a health visitor towards the end of my, before I went travelling. And I was always ruled by the clock. My ex-husband was very much a hurry up, let's get on to the next place sort of a traveller when we went on holiday, which was fair enough because we were limited with time. I suddenly found myself with endless time, and so I didn't need to hurry, and I really enjoyed the aimlessness of it and the not worrying if you didn't get to the next place by the next day. Just stay where you are and see how that goes. And it was the, oh, let's see how it goes, let's see what happens, that really appealed to me. And travelling in India, I've always been keen on outdoor camping, and we just slept under trees and on rocks in hot places, and it was such a contrast to what I'd been used to. And I loved all that, and I loved looking at the important places like the Taj Mahal and famous places, and the scenery was amazing. But after a while, after so many years, I realised that it wasn't the places I was seeing. I'd seen the most beautiful views, the tallest mountains, the most beautiful sandy beaches with palm trees and rivers and lakes and all the beautiful scenery and lovely animal life and bird life. And I realised that it was the people I was meeting along the way that was what was making it such a wonderful trip. And I view people like jewels, really, and it was like every day I'd meet another gem for my collection, if you like, but I had to leave them behind. But I just loved meeting people, and the bike being a bit of an eye-catching bike in the way that it's a bit battered, and Enfields are old and people quite like that. It was a magnet for people to come and talk to me, which I like very much. And that's really what I'm left with is the joy of meeting people. It was very hard to settle back into UK life, and people tell me, oh, you were brave doing all that travelling over all those years on a motorbike, you must have had some scary times. And yeah, I did have a few scary times, but coming back and trying to fit in to Western life again and life in the UK was very, very hard indeed. And I was lucky that I had a friend who had a boat in Bristol Harbour, and I was able to live on that for 2.5, nearly 3 years. And that was a transition for me because I wasn't in a building, I was on a boat and it moved about a little bit, and that helped me a great deal. But it did take me years to feel that I was back in a society I could live in again, because I found, especially travelling in Asia, was very liberating and freeing, and I was back being restricted again. But I don't feel like that now. It's available on Amazon. It's on Kindle as well now. It's available through Overland magazine. Shovey Press published it for me. Or you can contact me through my website, JacquiFurneaux.com, and I'll send you a copy. As a matter of interest, I've still got the Enfield. It's now 18 years old. I have no other means of transport except for a bicycle, a rusty old bicycle, and my bus pass now. So the Enfield lives with me in within my block of flats in Bristol, and it's out most days. And I'm as fond of it as ever, and I couldn't possibly part with it. And it hasn't got a name. I'm quite ashamed, and it hasn't even got a gender, so it's very trendy at the moment. It's gender neutral, but it's lovely and I adore it.
Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Moto Freight. Proud sponsors of Under the Visor.
If you want to see a full-length version of that amazing interview with Jacqui Furneaux, it will be available online later this month. Now on to the adverts.
A Helinox chair with crisp, fresh iceberg lettuce. The Adventure Bike Shop.
Rubbish adverts.
Great at adventure.
In my experience, there are three things that broaden the mind. One is hallucinogenics. And the second thing, well, that's traffic. The third thing, of course, is a good read.
When you read or listen to Graham Field's motorcycle travel books, it's not an uphill struggle. You just go along for the trip.
Climb jackets, sprinkled with free-range goat's cheese. The Adventure Bike Shop.
Rubbish adverts.
Great at adventure.
Now it's a second-hand bike review with the fantastic host of the show, me. Hi and welcome to the second-hand bike review. We're here at M&P's brand new Honda showroom. So thinking, hey, that's great, I'm going to get to review a brand new bike. But what's his name? Georgina, no, Sally. Oh, yeah, that's right. Graham was going to allow me to review one. But unfortunately, that's not the case. But we are lucky enough to review one of these, the Honda Crosstourer. In reality, this is probably a bike Graham should have been reviewing. But as always, newer bikes have gotten in the way of that. So fortunately for me, I get to review it instead. I think it's important that, seeing as we don't have an owner for this bike, is to talk about the pros and cons of buying privately or from a dealer. Of course, we're in a dealership, but we always try to be impartial with the information we give. So let's start with the pros firstly. In reality, the best thing about buying from a dealer is the warranty. Here at M&P's, you get a 3-month warranty as standard on any second-hand bike and the option to put it up to a year. Also, a health check, a safety check, and if needed, a service. Saying that, that's pretty much standard across any good dealer. What are the other pros? Well, you're going to get a good test ride. You'll be fully insured, unlike buying privately where probably the best you'll get is third party. And finally, finance on the bike. There is one major con from buying from a dealership, and that is you'll probably pay about 25% more than you would if you were to buy privately. To sum up, if you know your way around a bike and you don't mind having it tinkering around with it, go privately, you'll save yourself a sum of money. But if you want the reassurance and you're new to biking, it's always good to go through a dealer. Plus, as I said, there is a finance option for it. Onto the bike then. Right, with this bike, we've got a 1200cc Honda engine, which as we all know is going to be bulletproof. We also have a shaft drive, which when combined with the engine is going to keep servicing costs fairly low. Also, the wheels are spoked, which is fantastic if you're doing any light off-roading. What else do we have? This one comes with crash bars and an aftermarket exhaust, with a few electrical bits like heated grips and USB ports. Apart from that, this is standard. It's done 8,000 miles. And you know what? I want to go and ride it now. We all know of Honda's famous adventure bike. Well, this Honda Crosstourer is its overlooked sibling. It definitely is a more street-biased bike, but with the spoke wheels, you can do the odd bit of gravel. On the road though, the V4 engine has gobs of power to get you there. Although, compared to other bikes of similar ilk, it felt slightly lacking. Maybe I've been spoiled, but there seems to be a lack of urgency to it. The ride itself was smooth and predictable with the help from the KYB forks and the Honda ProLink suspension. Of course, with a bit more time, you could dial this in to suit your needs. With this in mind, you come to recognise the road bias of the bike, especially when coming off of curb where you could bottom the bike out. The shaft drive performed flawlessly, with smooth gear changes and quite a linear power delivery, as is the nature of that drivetrain. This bike can easily eat the miles. It's a comfortable place to sit and you'll arrive fresh and relaxed. To be honest, this bike is more of a BMW S1000 XR contender than a 1200 GS. If your travels are all road with a hint of gravel, this bike has to be on your list. Having test ridden the bike in the glorious Welsh wet weather, of course, they didn't want us to bring the sopping wet bike back into the showroom. So instead, I'm standing here with the new Crosstourer. In reality, there's no difference between this brand new model and the second-hand one, bar 8,000 miles and a hefty price reduction. Onto the test ride then. Well, while I was riding the bike, I was thinking, what other bikes do I know that have a final drive and a 1200cc? The only two that come to mind are the BMW 1200 and the Yamaha Super Tenere. Now with the BMW, you can't compare it, especially with that boxer engine. The only one I could do is maybe the Super Tenere, but the last time I rode one of those was way back in 2012, so it'd be unfair to have a comparison. So, let me tell you about the bike without comparing it. It's, in general, a bit unrefined. The gearbox is a bit clunky. You really need to open her up to get anything out of her. There's no excitement there. But the engine's reliable and smooth. Would I take one around the world? No. Would I buy one brand new? No. Would I buy one second hand? Yes. For the price? Definitely. And for road touring around Europe? No worries at all there. The final thing I will say is that being 5'11", it did start to give me a bit of an achy back, but that could just be you need to add risers and move the handlebars forward. But apart from that, yeah, it's a great bike. Now it's time for the Info Hub.
Hi everyone and welcome to Meals on Two Wheels. I am Claire and here today I'm going to be cooking a really simple and scrummy recipe for you which I really hope you will enjoy. I am making Hasselback potatoes. So simple, all you need, potatoes. Today I've got with me, you don't necessarily need all of this, but I've got some ham, got some prosciutto ham, I've got some onions and some garlic because, garlic is just awesome. And cheese! Can't go wrong with a bit of cheese. Do love cheese. I love this because it's simple. We've got a campfire going at the moment. And yeah, I'm just going to get straight into cooking it. So first things first, get your potato, plonk it there. I have actually brought with me some chopsticks, which sounds nuts, but we actually carried chopsticks with us when we were travelling. I put them either side purely for the fact that when you're cutting down, you don't cut all the way through the potato. So just going to chop off the bottom of the potato, as you can see, and put it flat. Stops it rocking everywhere. And then what I need you to do is just thin slices, about 2 or 3 millimeters wide. And eventually we can stuff lovely ingredients into it. And it's super, super tasty because it all melts and meshes into one big potato. It's a great way to cook. I'm hungry already, to be fair. There we go. And as you can see, look, it kind of splits open. But we're keeping this nice and tight. The next thing we're going to do is wrap it up, get some oil on it, chuck it on the fire for at least 25 minutes, I guess. So, wrapping your potatoes, mind, one thing to be aware of is to wrap them so you can reopen them very easily. I'm just spritzing this with some olive oil. And then bring up your long edges, take it to the top. And what you're going to do is just fold it over and roll. Because like I say, we're going to be reopening these once they're partly cooked to put the ingredients on. And then fold up those corners. Now, I'm actually going to double wrap these as well, just to make sure that there's no leakages. And it kind of helps it kind of have like an oven insulation as well. Voila! We're going to put these on our nice warm coals. Keep rotating it every 5 to 10 minutes. Right, so it's been about 25 minutes, half an hour, and I've just pulled this bad boy off of the fire. We're going to open it up and just have a look at what it's looking like. That makes me a happy bunny. Right, so as you can see, it's a lot easier to kind of separate out. Oh, it smells good. And like I say, the reason that I didn't put the ingredients on first is because if we put them on first, they would have burnt and it would have been a bit manky. So this is a great time to put all your ingredients in when it's partly cooked and get it so it melts and mushes right the way in. So the ingredients I've got here, some ham and some onions. So let's start off with those. Just every so often, putting bits of onions and ham. I'm going to get my garlic as well. Look at that. And some ham. Now, I'm actually going to put my ham and onions on top and then get some nice cheese and I'm going to stack it all on there. Try and open it up a little bit underneath. There you go. I'm happy with that. And I think a little bit of salt and pepper. Not too much salt because we've got the saltiness of the ham in there anyway. And then we're going to wrap it back up. Just push these bad boys back onto the fire. Look, you've got the remnants of the coals here. Just get them on, keep them nice and upright. And we'll leave them to cook for about 5 minutes. So, Hasselback potatoes, we have got them off the fire. And we are going to have a look now. It's the big reveal. I'm very excited as always because I love food. And yeah, let's see how we're getting on. Oh, I am one happy bunny. Okay, maybe not fine dine cuisine, but to me, that is awesome. I'm well excited. So now we've unwrapped our lovely Hasselback potatoes. I am going to tuck in, but first things first, I'm going to get Tom to come join me and enjoy it. And yeah, Tom, come. Oh, look at this, guys. It breaks away. It's like great cheesy potatoes, right? Oh.
So rubbish with chopsticks.
Pick it up and hold it. Oh, mine's so garlicky.
Really good.
Isn't it?
That's really, really good.
So tasty. So, yeah, give this one a go. You get not only like a great fireplace going, you can stay nice and warm around the campfire. You get some really great wholesome food, and at the end of the day, all you need is potato and cheese, really, if you want. But chuck in like chilies, chicken, you name it. You can put it all in. It's such a tasty, tasty meal. So yeah, thank you for joining us again this week, and we will see you again this week, this month, in fact. And we'll see you again next month. Bye.
On this month's Top Tech, we are looking at the Enduristan tank bags, specifically the Sandstorm 4H and the Sandstorm 4S. These easy to clip on bags are tough and importantly waterproof without the need for an inner bag. The main difference between the two is size. Both are 7 litres, but the 4S is expandable to 12 litres. Both the tank bags feature matte cases on top, which, like the bags themselves, have openings to allow charging of mobile phones inside, and despite these openings, they somehow remain waterproof. Inside the bags there is loads of room in the bright red main compartment. It also has dividers and a nice little document bag that can velcro to the lid. After riding for a week with these, we were massively impressed by the ergonomics and the build quality. Without question, these tank bags are some of the best on the market, and that's why we gave the Enduristan Sandstorm tank bags 5 stars. Hello and welcome to this month's Pitch Up. I'm Tom.
And I'm Claire, and today we are going to be talking to you about sleeping bags.
Yes, last month we were talking about sleeping mats and we were saying how important it is to get a good night's sleep when you're travelling, and this of course translates and continues on to sleeping bags.
Yep.
Now there are 3 things that you need to look out for when you're buying a sleeping bag. The first one is to know how cold the places you're going to. The second one is to look at pack size, how small it needs to be.
Yep.
If you're travelling a motorcycle, for instance, you want it to be nice and small. And the third one is how wet it's going to be. Are you going to be able to keep your sleeping bag dry?
So, let's get talking about it. I think one of the first things that we need to approach with all of this is the temperature. And a good way to gauge what's the right sleeping bag for you to take is to have a look at the manufacturer's EN rating, which should be on pretty much 99% of all sleeping bags. So tell us a little bit about EN ratings, Tom.
Okay, to simplify it, it basically breaks it down into 3 blocks. So you have your standard temperature block, which is called your plus rating.
Yeah, it's named some different things to different people.
Depending on the manufacturer, they call it different things, but it will always be split into 3. So you have your kind of plus rating, your comfort rating, and your extreme rating. Now your plus rating is where you're going to have a really nice toasty night's sleep. You're not going to have any problems at all.
Snug.
Your comfort rating means actually, theoretically, you should be fine. You shouldn't have any problems. You should get a decent night's sleep.
Yep.
The extreme rating basically means within that temperature bracket, in an 8-hour night of sleep, you shouldn't get hypothermia and you shouldn't die.
We might.
But you might. So, yeah.
And all of this EN rating is actually based on, I think it's like a 21-year-old male of a certain physique.
Yeah.
So you got to bear that in mind as well. You know, if you're older or if you're a female or something like this, it's going to vary ever so slightly.
They do state that the standard difference between male and female is 5 degrees.
Yep.
So you need to kind of go, if it is a male sleeping bag and it says, oh, it can handle 0, that's actually probably +5 for a female.
Yeah, so you always want to go warmer for a female.
Okay. The other thing is, when you are looking at this kind of warmth and things like that, females' sleeping bags have a whole different layout. So whereas male sleeping bags are pretty universal with where they lose heat, whereas with the females, they tend to have more padding around the hips and around the chest area because that is where females lose more heat. So women probably should look at getting a female-specific bag.
Yep, and it's all different shaping and sizing. Some that's a bit shorter and bigger foot lockers and stuff like that. So yeah, always have a look at the women's sleeping bags as well.
So the next thing to think about is whether you're going to be in an environment which is wet.
Yep, wet or humid, something like that. You've got to take this into consideration because then that will translate into the kind of material you want to have inside your sleeping bag. So there are actually 3 different types of materials, as a rule of thumb. The first one is synthetic, the second one is down, and the other one is hydrophobic down. Now, tell me some stuff about synthetic fibres, Tom.
Okay, well, they all have pros and cons.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at the cons first.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're looking at synthetic, you have the problem that they don't tend to pack up very small. They tend to have, a long time ago they used to use kind of some blocks that they had in there, but now they tend to be almost like an
fine
underlay.
Threads, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
it's like threads of material that are almost hollow tubes. They're very, very small.
Yes, yeah, and they do a good job, but you tend to need a lot more of it to keep you warm, because it's all about how much insulation you have and that kind of gap between
Each
the
fibre.
fibres. So to get that, they tend to be quite a lot bigger. They don't compact as small, but they have one massive advantage.
Huge advantage. If it gets wet, it dries a lot quicker. So that's always a good thing. Well, I'd say there's 2 advantages. Not only that, it's actually really quite cheap.
Yes,
Most synthetic
prices, yeah.
So that's like a little bit about synthetic. So let's have a look more into down and why that could be a plus point and its pros and cons.
Okay, so the first massive pro of a down sleeping bag is that it is very efficient in keeping you warm.
For sure.
Now, the first thing to realise is that not all down was created equal. Depending on which manufacturer you go to, they use a different kind of quality of down. Now, you tend to get the lowest end of down is used for things like duvets and things like that. And that means it's heavier down. What that means is when they test the down, it's dropped in front of a fan. The fan pushes it away. Now, the heavier it is, the sooner it will drop in to one of the baskets that holds the down underneath. Now, the ones right next to the fan mean that's a much heavier down and it's not going to be as efficient at keeping you warm. The lighter it is, the further it goes down and falls into one of the furthest baskets, and that's a really good quality down you want.
Yeah, and just so you can know, down, so imagine a bird, a fluffy bird, underneath its kind of top feathers is all the kind of fluffy down feathers underneath, and those are the feathers that is, it's not the outside feathers that you're looking at, it's the kind of fluffy stuff that's underneath it. So,
and again, you will find that the lower quality down does have those bits of feathers, and if you have a jacket, which is a down jacket or a duvet or anything like that, and there's bits of down coming out, it tends to be lower quality down because it's got the harder bits that can stick through.
Oh,
so
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. So, yes, one of the benefits of down is that it keeps you incredibly warm. One of the other benefits is it can pack up tiny.
Super small.
Tiny.
For the amount of weight and size ratio to the amount of heat, it's huge.
incredible.
It's brilliant.
There is a huge downside of down.
Yes, and this is one of the things that's, I think that they've developed hydrophobic down now because of it. If you get a down sleeping bag wet, it's just a nightmare to dry. And if it doesn't dry properly, it can then become mouldy, and that's just not good. So you've got to really maintain it particularly well, or just scrap the idea of taking like a down kind of sleeping thing if you're going to go on like a kayaking holiday. No. Or if you're going to be somewhere where it's really wet and humid and stuff, don't ride and take that with you.
The main issue you've got is that when it gets wet and you try and dry it, unless it's kept moving, which is why if you dry it, you always have to dry it on a line so it has some movement, is that the down clumps, and once it's clumped together, it's almost impossible to get apart and use again.
Exactly. So the efficiency of the heat is lost as well. So
and that's why they brought out hydrophobic down, which
hydrophobic down.
The best thing ever. But the biggest downside of hydrophobic down, because it's incredibly warm, like normal down, it's water resistant, just like the synthetic bags. You won't have any issues with that. It's super lightweight, super packable, but it's also super
expensive.
So the key thing is, you take those 3 things, you look at how cold it's going to be, how wet it's going to be, and how small you need to pack it.
Yep.
And then you buy the best you can.
The best.
With your money.
Yep.
Because it's so important.
Thank you for watching this month's epic show. Now, I have to say, the hosting has been fantastic, thanks to me, but that has been tarnished ever so slightly with the fact that I found out from Tom that it wasn't Graham's faith in me hosting, it was just the fact they forgot to film it when they were in London. So, on that note, you'll be back with your budget host, Graham Hoskins, next month. Have a good one. So, okay.
Eventually we'll get to stuff these bad boys. As we have pulled them off the fire. Synthetic, so look. I'm trying to... Did you hear a horse earlier?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just in my head, right?
Just
where the hell is it?
High-end LED fog lights dipped in creamy milk chocolate. The Adventure Bike Shop.
Rubbish adverts.
Great adventure.